No.
Live from Stevenson Ranch. Hello, hey, how are ya? Got my guy. It's always a fucking pleasant. It's always a pleasant experience bumping into you. I think last time I saw you now, here he comes, Mr. Steve. I was on stage. It was in Philly.
Yeah.
I think I'm sitting in the green room. Alec Boehm is there, and he's like, "Oh, we're playing the Brewers tomorrow." I was like, "Really?" So I texted you. It was probably an hour or so before I got on stage, and
I think you called me like right when
I called
we
you,
literally landed on the charter like in Philly, and you called me. You're like, "Oh, we're going on like an hour and a half."
Yeah,
and we got there. Like,
love
right
those
when
synchronicities.
we went on. Yeah, like lined up perfect.
It was perfect, and then you got to see pretty much the whole set, right?
Yeah, the whole thing. Like, we literally, I think you went on like right when we were walking in.
Yeah, fire.
Yeah, so it worked out perfect.
It was awesome.
It was cool, man.
Yeah, and last time we had you on, we were just talking about it. It was about 2 years, almost exactly.
Yeah. Training.
Crazy. That was in Scottsdale at the time. We're out in your neck of the woods, really.
Yeah.
Out in Malibu here. Man, just talking about it outside. Tough place to be in a bad mood. Tough.
Can't beat it, man. Honestly,
Tough.
We've both been a lot of places, and it's,
yeah,
you keep coming back here just because it's I think it's just like it's a getaway from like the craziness and the madness. Like, you're by the water. It's kind of secluded. It's a little bit slower way of life. Mm-hmm. I think when you live a fast-paced life all the time, it's nice to be able to slow it down, just get away, collect your thoughts, and then recharge for when you have to go back and live that fast-paced life.
It really is. Now, you're born not far from here, so you grew up here.
Yeah.
Did you understand that growing up? Obviously, you hadn't seen the world, or I'm sure there's a lot of the world you still want to see, given your schedule and the rigor of it. There's limitations. We'll get into that a little bit. I want to touch on that a little bit, but the knowing how special this place was, it seems like you've known that because you've been an owner here for a crib here for what, 5-6 years? You said?
Yeah, 5-6 years. I think 18. I think I rented in 17 just to like try it out and see how I liked it. I don't know what part of me thought I wasn't gonna like it, but I'm like, let me just rent it for a little while, like test it out. This off season with some buddies, and obviously ended up loving it. I came here a bunch as a kid just to go to the beach and stuff, but we obviously didn't live in Malibu. And I think it was always like, wow, I think it'd be really cool to live in Malibu one day and just be able to live on the beach and kind of take in that lifestyle, and fortunate to be able to do it the last few years. And it's just been nice. It's a good recharge and something that when you're on the go, and then you can just chill for as long as you want, or it's close enough where you can go do some things. But I've been loving it, man.
Yeah, and you're a very laid back guy in general, which I think obviously suits Malibu quite nicely. That's like the tone of this place.
Yeah,
I had to earn my way to that level of peace. My rigor was fucking partying when you didn't want to, and your body was saying no, and we got 3,000 people out there ready to fucking go bonkers. That's my rigor, and been my own journey to kind of this level of, being in Malibu and comparatively to a guy who lived in LA, it's just a totally different feeling, totally different mind state. So I'm a big, I don't even know if you see my social media, but more and more into the spiritual realm of things and just nature, especially. How are you a guy who, like, we just talked about the off season and how you're really having a special off season where you're just really catching a vibe with your boy and being here and being at peace. Do you make a concerted effort to do certain things to tap in with nature, or even just shit that's like getting out of your mental in the bubble of being a professional baseball player? I get the obvious need to decompress and separate from that even just kind of feel like we'll put it in a certain way, like a separate or a second life where you get this, you try to achieve a level of peace, I would imagine. So being here obviously makes a lot of sense, but is that an effort you make? Or as you're getting older, we just talked about turning 30 and what that feels like, even if it's just a mental illusion of age, you know what I mean? Or time. Is that something that's developing within you? You feel like, is that something that's happening naturally, or has it always been that way for you? Just,
I think the last year or two, I've probably changed a lot, I think, as a person. Whether that's through life experiences or just naturally just getting older. I think we've both been kind of fortunate to have good perspective on like life. You've got to experience a lot of different things, a lot of you got to live the dream, I guess, essentially, for lack of a better phrase or wording. But what comes with that is you also get really good perspective on situations. You don't have a what would this be like, or like, I think when you're always striving for like the next best thing, you never reach anything. Like,
Right.
it's, you know, we were talking about outside where it's like, you know, you have a perception of what the quote unquote life is until you live that life. And then it gives you a different, you know, a different lens to look through and different perspective about like what matters. But essentially you have to live that life in order to realize that, I guess. I think that's what I've noticed the most. And then you come here and you get a good reset, and, you know, you can drive down the road on a Tuesday and some dude's dragging his surfboard behind him at 10:30 in the morning. And it's like, wow, this is like a really cool like perspective on life. And it's a lot slower, and you're like, wow, it's not as crazy. Like, it's close to LA, or really close to LA, but
really close to the hustle and bustle, but
couldn't be farther. But couldn't be farther from LA, you know?
Exactly. You said something in that you feel like you've changed the most the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. It is crazy. I don't know if a psychological switch goes off, or I think maybe we have parallel experiences in some ways, like you said, getting to achieve a certain level of experience. You know what I mean? But maybe it's age related. Maybe it's a psychological thing. I don't know. What do you think? What would you say has been some of those bigger changes that you feel like you're experiencing personally? Are you even able to put a finger on it, or does it just feel generally?
Yeah, it's hard to explain. I think you can just tell. I think things that you value more have changed. Like you realize like what's important, or you have a better idea of like what direction of life you want to go down. And like, this matters a lot. I used to think this mattered a lot. This doesn't matter at all, actually.
What are you thinking of when you say that? For you,
I think you value who you spend your time with, and you realize like how quickly and fleeting like really special moments are. And so I try to be a little bit more present, just with whether that's friends or family, or you go on a cool trip or have a cool experience, or you know, us kind of sitting down and doing something like this, catching up, because you know, everything goes by so quickly. And maybe in the past, you're like, oh yeah, like, this is my life, this is cool, like, we're gonna sit down and do this, and then like, who knows what ends up happening tonight. But to be able to kind of take a step back and appreciate those little moments in life, and value who you spend your time with, and people that have a positive impact on your life, and you know, just like-minded people, or people that you know, you're like, wow, like, we don't have to do anything, we just kick it and hang out and talk, and like, this is cool. And then, you know, a few months from now, like, you're so busy, you're so crazy, like that's not even an option. So
yeah, you strike me as a guy who's kind of never really, would I be wrong to say, I feel like you innately I don't see that as a huge struggle for you, being, you know, wrapped up with like, does everyone think I'm cool? Let me be at this party and this event and all these people.
I couldn't care less.
That was never really you ever.
Yeah, just something about that. You know, I've done that. Obviously, I've been at those events or at those parties, and yeah, it's a good time. But at the same time, you can kind of like step back and look around and just be like, I don't know, this is cool, but it's all fake in a way.
Yeah.
Like, it's not real.
Surface level.
Yeah, like it's just and I wish I was able to explain it better. But when you're kind of there, you're just like, all right, like, this is really sweet. But
yeah. So this self-awareness or perspective that you seem to value, feel like you've always valued it. It's something, I don't know. I mean, me and my boy talk about this, like growing up where we grew up, and we kind of touched on something out there that I wanted to bring up, this like boyhood dream of what is living the dream. It's really something you decide when you're a child or a teenager, like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
You see the guys hitting the home runs, quite literally, your chicks dig the long ball.
Yeah.
Like, oh, and very much so, you're an alpha male. Look how good I'm doing if I'm performing well in sports, and I'm attractive to women and this socially cool, acceptable, fun guy. Like for me, my version of the dream, as you said, like I got to go on and kind of actualize it.
Yeah.
And, you know, it feels as though, yes, it's not a blanket statement for all men or all boys, childhood dreams to be living the dream, but it's kind of a blanket thing generally. Like, yeah, that's what guys want to do. Like
Yeah.
you want to overachieve, and you want to be really well. You want to be loved. Like that's what social media is showing. Everyone wants attention. Everyone wants to feel loved and accepted.
Yeah.
But where we grew up, it feels as though we were kind of programmed towards we grew up very middle class, hustle and bustle, East Coast. You said something, fuck you, I'm gonna punch you in your mouth. As I've grown and experienced so much, I really saw like the voids in that and what it really meant about me and things I wanted to grow and change.
Yeah.
It seems as though you kind of didn't really have that, or I guess or the question more so would be, do you credit growing up out here just with aiding or abetting to who you are now in regards to just being a little more laid back, being a little more, I don't know, it's kind of a California-esque feeling.
Yeah, maybe. But also I think, all that stuff you talk about, everyone kind of tells you that's the dream and what you're supposed to do when you're successful, because most of the time the people telling you that's what the dream is haven't actually
it's a dream.
Live that dream, right?
Yeah.
So it's a dream, and it's like, oh, once I attain this, or I have this thing, or I make all this money, this'll make me happy, right? And until you actually can like tangibly hold that, you always have this sense of like, oh, well, if I can only have these things, it'll make me happy.
Right.
But once you actually have those things, I think you realize what makes you happy is experiences and the people that you can share them with or do them with. I think that's kind of where I get happiness from.
This is interesting. I want to get to this. Like, that's very challenging with your career, though.
Yeah, it can be, for sure.
Very lonely.
Oh, yeah.
It can be very lonely.
Very much so.
And it can be very much so like you're living this dream, and it's almost can be confusing because it's everything that you put your happiness all in that eggs in that basket. Even guys like you who are very well balanced, you're still growing up and like everything depends on you coming and actualizing this. And as you do it, I thought back to our last conversation. You talked about that a little bit. Like you were so green in the beginning and just like, oh yeah, I belong here. This is it. And I can relate and I resonate so much with that, actually. I thought about it today. Like, I resonate so much with, looking back at my younger self. And there's a part of you that almost misses it. You're like, oh, man, like so much reckless abandon and just so much almost delusional confidence.
You miss the newness of it, I think, where everything's new, like all these experiences you haven't experienced yet. So it's all new. It's new cities. For me, it's new stadiums. For you, probably new venues or stadiums.
Yeah. Hopefully one day.
Yeah. Or everything's new though, right? Like you haven't experienced this yet. It's still fresh. You're still striving to succeed or make it. And not saying that we've lost that, drive to succeed or make it, because I think you still need that. But the newness, at least for me, it has kind of worn off in a way.
Yeah.
And you said, you spend a lot of time on your own and solo. And with that, you kind of think, you have a lot of time to think or be to yourself and just be like, all right. And that's kind of what's helped me be like, oh, well, this is important in my life. This isn't. And you realize I have a small amount of time for these experiences and who to share them with. And
right. So to your point of learning kind of what's most important.
Yeah.
Part of what you learned is that what you value in life, to the highest degree is also extremely challenging given the schedule that you're subscribed to, period.
Yeah.
And what you have to do to be who you are.
For sure.
Does that, how does that impact your decision-making or your day-to-day outlooks? I think this is, I took a poll earlier and said, send in some questions for Christian. A lot of people want to just know more about who you are, you know, and the things that you're going through in real time. And like, dude, you know, what were you in the big leagues? Were you 20 or 21?
21. Yeah.
What's the percentage of people that can even say it's just such a microscopic amount of people? And then you go have an MVP and you've been an all-star. And now, you know, like, how long have you been in the league? Almost 10 years.
Yeah, this is going to be my 10th full season coming up in parts of 11 years in the big leagues. Yeah, which is crazy.
It's crazy to think about. Yeah. And I'm in a similar age group and same length of time in a career. Mm-hmm. And it is really fucking crazy to realize how much, you know, of your life energy and time is, you know, I guess, I mean, and that's just at the big league level. For you, it's been your whole fucking life, a devotion to this. So we talked about this a little bit on the last episode, you know, but shining a light a little bit on the realities of being a big league player, more so off the field versus on, and hey, this today it didn't go well, I'm not seeing the ball well, or I am, or whatever it is. Just want to reach a little bit deeper into the mental bag that you have to be in, and even some of the rigors, the ups and downs, because you've had highs and you've had lows. Yeah. You've had injury, you've gone through COVID season. Yeah. You know, I remember last we spoke, you were trying to rebound from a season you didn't feel, you know, went your way, and you also are on the heels of a few things that I think is very interesting. Major success at an early life. Like, dude, you played you're a veteran technically in the big leagues, but you're so fucking young in life. Contrary to how you might feel like, hey, I just turned 30, I'm kind of old. Like, I think athletes have a really horseshit perspective on this period.
Well, yeah, once you turn 30 in sports, like you're ancient.
Yeah, you know? Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like, not to say all athletes, not even saying that's not a negative thing. I'm saying it's the reality of your life situation. It's like, dude, since I was 10 years old, I've been playing this game. I'm now 20 years later in it, in the big leagues for 10. You start looking at age, perspective, life. And I think it's just such an interesting dynamic to be 30, have the successes almost in your rear view. Like, it's not just like, oh, it's right now. No, you know what I mean? Like, a minute, and there's going to be more. Not saying that either. I'm saying it's just a very interesting seat to be sitting in and balancing the mental rigors of it all, and understanding, hey, like, you know, this is a one-player game. You know, like, as much as you're on a team, always been on a team, and you obviously have a team and your family and your friends with you on your journeys through life. You spend a lot of this time in a fucking hotel room by yourself thinking about the last at bat, or, you know, hopefully not too much, but it's the reality of being an athlete at the highest level and being, you know, shine a little light on just, you know, some of the things that you've gathered through, you know, this journey of being a professional athlete. And I guess maybe some of the things that help you at least stay grounded in what's important, which really sounds like presence. You know, like you're really more interested in being present in your day-to-day. How are you able to juggle that with the pressures? How much pressure are you feeling nowadays? Do you feel more pressure because signing a huge contract and having an MVP and I need to live up to that? How do you regulate it? This is a long-winded question.
No, it's all, and it's a long-winded question, but it's literally kind of what life has been like the last few years, and kind of just how to take that all in and then deal with it too. And I think you have to experience it, and you have to make mistakes. You have to let things get to you that shouldn't have gotten to you. Yeah. So you have perspective on how to handle it, and that also lets you realize what you value and what makes you happy. You know, I think we probably talked about this last time we got together, but it's like when I was a little kid, I didn't look at athletes as like real people. I was like, oh yeah, like that's I don't know, robot or what's going on out there. Just because you see them through a screen, or you go to, for me it was Dodger Stadium. I go to Dodger Stadium and you sit in the second deck and you watch the game, and then you go home, and that's the last time. And then you just don't think about it again until you're there. You see the guys on TV. You're like, oh, I don't know how somebody could be that good at a sport, or it just feels so far away from what your real life is. And so I think a lot of people probably, when they look at athletes or entertainers, whether that's musicians, actors, you don't really see them as like real people who are the same as you.
Yeah.
You have good days, bad days, and you still have the stresses, the pressures. They manifest themselves probably a little bit differently than a regular person, but you still have to navigate all this. And I think a lot of this life, it's so unnatural. Like
Really
it's not, you know, I feel it's not really a way that, you know, people were probably meant to exist, you know, especially in a social media age where, you know, there's times where you feel like you're under a microscope, whether that's
weirder and weirder,
whether that's true or not. Like, you know, sometimes I try and tell myself like, dude, who gives a shit? Like, yes, there's people that are baseball fans or they watch the Brewers, but then you go home and like deal with your own life. You know, they go and they move on with life. So yeah, maybe they're really happy with you or really pissed at you in that 3-hour window of whenever you were.
How much of that whole sphere, how much does that impact you? Let's narrow it down to just a season, right? Like, you have grown up literally in front of people and actually experienced a huge shift. When you started, social media wasn't even, I mean,
really a thing. It was just kind of starting. Yeah.
Right.
Just kind of starting.
How much has, if any, has like, you know, I don't think, you know, strike me as a guy who's like super impacted and like very caring about what everyone's saying on the internet. But how much of that do you think is a factor in the percentage of the pressure you feel?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're all the same way. It's like, yes, you don't really care what people say to you on the internet, but that doesn't mean you don't see it. And you can try not to see it as much as you want, but you're still going to see it. Like, you know, and I've kind of lived both ways with that. Like you know, starting in Milwaukee, like could do no wrong. Like the first 2 years there, you're killing it essentially. Everybody loves you. Everything's great. Yeah. It's as high as you can be. Like that's you know, other than winning a World Series, like basically did everything you could do there the first 2 years. Then COVID, injuries, struggles, and got to experience the other end of that. You sign a contract, you don't live up to those expectations at first. You know, there's still a long way to go on that, but you know, you deal with what comes with that. You know, people pissed off at you, or you know, I'll tell you what, here's what you don't ever want to do as a pro athlete. You don't ever want to make the last out of a postseason series. You don't ever want to make the last out of a postseason series, and you definitely don't want to strike out looking if you're going to do it. Yeah. I did all those things. And man, I'll tell you what, like it was like 3 months removed, and I could still go on my social media and it'd be like, fuck you, bitch. Like all kinds of stuff just. And when that first happened, like you could scroll, dude. Like it was like, you know, you don't read it all because that would be just, I don't know why you'd want to mentally torture yourself with all that. But, you know, it's such a weird thing because you're just like, all right, you know, obviously as athletes, like you don't want to fail in those situations. Like you want to succeed, but you also recognize like that's kind of comes with it. You know, like this is the profession, whether you think that's acceptable or not acceptable, like it's not going to change. And I've actually thought about this every time I've watched the Super Bowl for like the last 5 years. I don't know if this makes me fucked up or not, or how skewed and changed like my vision is. Like, I think like, oh wow, like somebody here is going to be an absolute hero in this game because they made a play that like won their team the Super Bowl. And there's another guy and his family that's not gonna be able to walk outside for 3 months because the entire city and country is gonna hate him. Because,
that is not a normal reaction.
Because like he made a play that cost his team the game, or didn't make the play, or dropped the pass, or fumbled something, and it's like
it's a slight version of PTSD from your experience.
Well, I don't know if it's PTSD, but like I think the way the lens you kind of view the world through, and it's not, and you're just like, wow, like we'll see what happens. Like best of luck to both teams, but like I feel really bad for that guy in 3 hours who doesn't even know it yet, who's sitting in his locker with his locker room and be like, man, I hope we win the Super Bowl today. Yeah. And then there's a guy, it's gonna happen every game, and it happens in every playoff game, but
pretty much
the Super Bowl is the biggest, you know, sporting event in the country. But there is a guy that happens to, you know, and it's unfortunate. There's a hero and there's a GOAT, but you know, everybody else moves on with their lives, but like that guy's still got to deal with that for a while. And how do you navigate that? You just have to do it and find your own way. And it's probably different for everybody.
Now, what is your way of navigating it, would you say? Do you feel like you've spent time I just wanna dive more into this
Yeah.
a little bit, like, I'm super into like me personally. I've gone into like a seclusion phase where I just like to be alone and I like to reflect and I like to be in stillness. And I do have huge bandwidth. I feel like bandwidth is opening up. There's less distractions, right? And I get to think and reflect on things that they're always. It's always you're not supposed to do any of that for an aha moment, but they come and then I get clarity on something that frees up a lot of my energy going forward. Now, it's different but the same. Like if I'm recording music, are people reacting? It's almost like almost even more so I'm dependent on external validation for this to be successful. It's also opinion based. Like you go hit a bunch of home runs, you're hitting home runs. That's it. It's a fact.
Yeah.
This is opinion based and also a marketing thing, whatever it is, you know what I mean? But having a breakthrough on a perspective shift, let's call it, just with my time alone has opened up some shit where I'm like, oh, I'm totally detached from the results. Truly. You know what I mean? I'm just I'm being who I am to the best of my ability. I'm gonna keep trying to be better and better. I'm also trying to I also had a breakthrough where I needed to have fun. I needed to have fun to be even improving, to get better and to not decline artistically. You know what I mean? It's about being free and easy and creative and open. Do you feel as though you've given time, energy, efforts to gaining perspective that might give you an unlock? Have you had an unlock? Where are you now in the digestion phase of the realities, some of the harsh realities of just what you do?
I think it's acceptance first. So I think you have to realize like, okay, like this is my life. This is what comes along with it. This is how it's been. Like all these things are happening. But then you have to go through it. And I think for me, it has to become overwhelming at first. Like you have to be like, oh, wow, like everybody loves me. Everybody hates me. Or, if I do good, like everything's great. If I struggle for a while, like everything's bad. And then you realize like, why do I give energy to this? I think you have to live it and experience it and have it affect you for a while until you can learn how to manage it and learn how to navigate it or like, oh, this makes me happy, or like this is what's important. Right. Or like you're saying, like you're not really attached to the result as much as you are like the process and what you put into it and who does that with you. But I don't think you can have that perspective until like you struggle or like there's chaos or there's shit everywhere and you're like, I don't really know how to like organize all this. Like everything's kind of going crazy. Like I feel like I can't get off this like crazy roller coaster and it becomes like overwhelming. And then like, I think you just have like a moment where you're just like, you know what, fuck it. Like, this is like my life. I'm going to take control of it. This shit is what matters to me. Like this doesn't. Right. And you go from there. But I think you have to experience all those things before you can actually like learn to deal with it and like live with it. And then like come out the other side with like a really clear outlook on the direction you want to have with your life and how you're going to proceed going forward, as far as whether that's with performance, whether that's with like, whether that's mentally or just like your new outlook on life. And I feel like for me, like it's been every week, every month, every day, like you become better. And I feel like I've changed a lot as a person in the last 2 years for the better, just because I have better grasp of like what's important to me and like what makes me happy.
See, that's really fucking dope though, because we talked about it on the last episode, and I think it's a huge struggle as competitive men in general, competitive people in general, but at the highest level. You know what I mean? Like being defined by how you're performing is such an incredible hurdle. To not subscribe to that, hey, like my self-worth is not dependent on me hitting as good as I did a year ago, or making the songs at the highest level I did 2 years ago, or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Well, for me, it was like this moment of like, all right, like no matter what you do, for most people, it's never going to be good enough. So like once you're in that like and I say that not to have like this pessimistic outlook on life. I say that because like, all right, once you've won an MVP, you've played at a really high level, you got paid because of that level. If you do that again, it's because you're supposed to, because of like how you played.
Right.
And if you don't do anything up to that level, you're a disappointment and a failure, and you're not worth it. And everyone's going to have an opinion. I'm like, why did we pay you this much money? Like, you're a bust or whatever. But, and then if you like to win an MVP, like so much shit has to go right for you to win an MVP, like so health-wise, performance-wise.
So much.
Another guy can't have a crazy season where you finish second, So for that to be like the measuring stick, it's so unrealistic. And I think you just like, you're going to kill yourself if you keep, and I mean that as like, you're going to like mentally, emotionally, just like, it's going to become so overwhelming if like, that's your standard for like, okay, like I've succeeded.
Right.
You have to find different markers and measuring sticks but to do that, you have to accept like, okay, this is a situation. This is the outlook on a lot of people's minds. And then go from there and learn how to navigate that. And it takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of trial and error. It takes a lot of failing. It takes a lot of lonely nights, just shitty nights, days.
Doubting yourself.
Yeah, where you're just like, what the fuck, man? Like you said, we spend a lot of time on your own. You're surrounded by a lot of people, but it can be a very lonely life at times.
Yeah.
To where you're like, man, like I got to figure this shit out.
What would you say? What would you say your main emotion? If you looked at each season, let's go season by season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's compare the year, whatever year you fucking dominated, right? And then let's compare it to a year where you struggled. Now, obviously, the obvious answer is the one you struggled. You struggled more mentally. You were lower points, obviously, right? But let's actually take the detail out of it. In a season, not talking results related. And obviously, not talking if something specific happens in your life at that time that's deeply impactful. Just generally, baseline emotions. What would you say your main emotion is throughout a year? Like, more so on is it loneliness? Is it a balance between extremely fulfilled on the field, but then, on your personal life, there are struggles that come with that? I don't know.
Yeah, I think each one's different, to be honest with you. Like, I don't think there's like an emotion that you feel for every season. Right. Some have been relief. Like every day you go home, you're like, oh, fuck.
Okay, so let me phrase it better for you to get what I'm trying to get at. Like 8 years in, you're 8, 9, 10 years in, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, they're broken up by major events. You get to play in the big leagues, obviously life-changing. MVP, life-changing. All the, and then struggles, also life-changing in their own way. You know what I mean? Or even if it's just internally, whatever. Just looking at it removed from the hoopla of like those major accomplishments, right? Let's just look at the last few seasons. Put us in, I guess, the mental, emotional state of just like being one, like you said, it's not new anymore. You know what I mean? So what are some of the things that you feel like are kind of commonplace that you're dealing with just on an internal dialogue or emotionally, how you're feeling throughout a season?
Yeah. So,
nowadays.
Nowadays. So you kind of look at it as like, all right, like you obviously know what's required of you or what's expected of you and what you expect from yourself, honestly. Like, yeah, there's outside expectations and people expect you to play, perform, act a certain way just because of who you are, what you're getting paid, and, what comes along with that is like a certain caliber of performance and the way you conduct yourself. So that going in, like I understand that. And in a couple of weeks, we're going to go to spring training and like, that's going to be that. Like that, I'm cool with that. Like I understand it is what it is. And I think for me I've grown. I would use the word, if I had to like encapsulate the last few years, I would say growth is like the biggest thing that I could take away from it, is because I think you need to go through like those ups and downs and those kind of like those moments to have like those formative years, because I don't think I would have the same outlook and same perspective without it, honestly.
Wouldn't.
So is it a motherfucker while you're going through it? Like, yeah, it sucks. But when you come out the other side, you're like, oh, wow, like I've grown as a person. Even if that growth is just like a perspective and just like this is what matters to me personally in my life. And that could be different for everyone. But to come out the other side with that is like, I think it's cool and can potentially translate to better on-field performance because you're mentally in a better spot. Things are more clear. And, you know, I think the fact that it's not so new anymore, it could be a good thing because it's, you know, something that you know how to deal with now and you understand like what's ahead of you. And I know we talked about it before we got on here, but you know, like that pause button, I still kind of wrestle with that one in a sense of where sometimes baseball season in general feels like your life's paused. So wherever you leave it mid-February, not necessarily, but more times than not is where you're picking it up in October after the postseason or after the regular season, depending on how your season turned out. And that's a fairly substantial chunk of time to where like, you know, everybody else in your life, they keep moving on, right? So like the new year just happened. It's 2023, right? Like everyone's like, oh, cool, like 2023, like it's my year, I'm going to do this thing. We go to spring training and it's like, you come back and it's Halloween. And, you know, everybody's getting ready for Thanksgiving and Christmas and
winding down.
Christmas and then the new year. And like, wow, let's look back on the year. And you're like, yeah, like let's look back on the year.
Here's me hitting,
right? Like, oh, like yeah, and you feel like you miss out sometimes in a way, which is so fucked to say because like you play.
It's really not. Though.
No,
it's really not. It's the truth, man.
To you because you understand.
Yeah. It's really this is why I like going this way with.
But I wrestle with that because it's like you have this gratitude for what you do. And like, I don't want to have another job. Like I don't want to do anything other than what I'm doing. But I think over the years, you kind of realize like what you've had to sacrifice in order to achieve to get what you have.
Yeah.
And it's a lot and it's time and it's years. And I can finally see why guys stop playing when they can, when they can still physically do it. Mm-hmm. Because they're like, you know what? I've had enough of this. Yeah. I've had enough of this grind. I've had enough of this time away from my family. Like I don't get my happiness from money or numbers on a screen in a bank account. You know, I get it from other things. And not saying that I don't want to play anymore because I still do.
Right.
But I have a better way. I can see why guys are like, yeah, you know, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'd be like, well, what do you mean you're good? Like, keep going.
I love to hear it.
Yeah.
I love to hear it. This is a dialogue I think is important because it's as you kind of hinted towards, it's fairly hard. And you said like, oh, because you can understand, you know, like it's fairly hard for the person that loves the Milwaukee Brewers or the Los Angeles Lakers and grew up and has this interpretation of the relationship to the athlete and the team, and they're like superhuman, you know, like you are now the guy that you thought was fake when you were a kid. That's you now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Trippy. Yeah.
Which is trippy.
Yeah.
But it's really dope that you're zooming out of it because this is kind of what I like to talk, like my athlete homies who sometimes feel a little bit lost in life or not lost, but you know what I mean? Maybe a little confused with a lot of these things that can be confusing. A lot of these emotional, mental, hey, like what is important? Wow, I have given so much time to this. Wow. Like, you know, as a kid, I would have voted that I would never stop playing baseball if I could, you know?
Right.
And then you grow up and you start to experience things from a different perspective. Do you feel as though, like I get this thing sometimes where it's really where I've learned to have peace for me because I was a fairly hectic minded guy. Always wanted to do the next thing. Presence was a real issue. Are there things about what you do that give you angst about life in general, in the sense of like just the amount of what we're talking about, right? Like I know a lot of athletes talk about anxiety and certain things, the mental struggles of it all. You seem obviously very well balanced and like you just have that. You have that almost innately where some people just don't, you know what I mean? And it's more of a struggle. when the sun's going down every single fucking night, I mean, you don't even get to watch the sunsets because you're on the goddamn field, you know?
Yeah. Pretty much all summer.
Do you wrestle with that mentally? Like, fuck, time's going by so fast, man. Like, you know, is it hard? Or is it because you're so dialed into what you're doing on the field, is it kind of null and void? Is that something that happens in the off season where you're like sitting there watching the sunset thinking like, man, how many of these do I have? You know, like.
It's probably more of I've never thought of that on the field per se.
Yeah.
I've definitely thought of that though. And I used to never think about that. I've thought about that within the last year or two, probably, honestly. Like
maturity.
The last time we talked, I never thought about that. so whatever that was, 2 years ago, I had never thought about that ever, right? And I don't know why that is. And that's what I'm saying. Maybe it's still the newness. It's still you're doing this. And then I don't know where it goes where you're just like, well, shit. Like, and I think people, you know, for me, it's going to be like, well, all of my 20s and at least half of my 30s are going to be playing this game. Yep. Which is fine. Like I wouldn't rather do anything else. Yeah. Well, and high school and before that. And you're like, wow, I've like really, really dedicated a lot of time to this. Yeah. I've missed a lot of things. Yeah. I've also gotten to experience a lot of things because of it.
Amazing. Yeah.
But it's just different. And I don't think you can, like, it's hard to rationalize. Like, it doesn't make sense is what I'm saying. It's like, and we said that earlier, it's like, it's just not a normal life. So if you try to look at it through like a normal lens, it's never gonna really make sense. And I guess what you're saying earlier, like athletes have anxiety sometimes, and sometimes it's performance anxiety. Like for me personally, like I've never had really performance anxiety. Like I know that I've prepared, I've done everything I can to play well, like whether that happens or not.
Right.
Who knows? But I know that I've given myself every chance physically to do that. I've probably had to work on it more mentally in the last couple of years, just to like, you know, to compete at the highest level, to compete in the big leagues, you need to be present both mentally and physically. And if you're not either of those things, you know, it's going to be tough for you.
And growing, like all this growth that you're talking about, which I think is amazing that you understand that you're growing even through struggles, which actually might be amplifying your growth as a person. Yeah. You know what I mean? But acknowledging that hurdle that you face, you know, is a task, bro. Like mental preparation, mental stability practices, outlook changes that will help you get, you know, easier and easier to digest mentally and prepare mentally. I mean, I know you're a Max Homa guy. Like we had some real dialogues for like about a year straight when he was really diving into the little mind and spirit. And he saw so much of the athletic performance change.
It's huge.
It's not all about that, but
it's more than you think, though.
When you are so good physically, like you said, I've done everything I need to do. Like I can sleep at night knowing that I prepared and I've given my life to this. The results will happen as they may. A lot of it's luck. You could be hitting rockets all year right at people, or it could be the inverse. What I will say, what I want to kind of get at a little bit with you is just like the luck aspect, the coincidences. I don't believe in coincidences. You were given these God-given abilities, mental and physical, to actualize who you are. Now, when you get there, and again, it's not new anymore, and there are these new hurdles to showing up and being who you need to be. There's an aspect of mental, spiritual growth, or even just practice, like going to the fucking cage when you were a kid, learning how to be a better hitter. Do you feel as though you are putting your best foot forward in that? Or is it also, it's a two-part question, like maybe you're just, each person is totally different. I do think you're an extremely level-headed person in general, which most athletes, like, you kind of got to be a hard ass to be great, you know? And like, it seems like that wasn't a really issue for you, being overconfident or self-indulged or have to be this badass to go perform out there. You've been pretty level-headed. Do you feel as though, have you thought about it? Do you put time in to mental and spiritual growth? And the only reason I poke at this more is because I do feel as though this law of attraction. I'm living in an abundant, positive, I'm living my dream. It's a dream to be alive. Living in that essence, living in that frequency of this positivity, things are gonna go my way. You know, I do totally subscribe to that shit works at levels that we can't understand, you know?
I believe that now. Yeah, I do. So for me, like competing wise, I'm not outwardly that way of like ultra confident or like this badass persona, but inwardly,
Yeah.
I have that. And I think, like you said, to be very successful at a very high level, you need that, and you need an element of that for whatever reason. But I think I've realized like you need the mental aspect of it more so these last few years, and how important that really is. And you know, I don't know why. And for whatever reason, I've realized how important that is, and how you need to work on it too. It's not something that you can be like, okay, today I'm going to wake up and I'm going to be like mentally good. Like you can't just do that. It's a process, and it's a journey, and it's all the things that we've talked about already. And that kind of leads you along that process. And then things start to happen where you realize like all this shit's connected, man. Like where like you put positivity and happiness like out into the world, like it comes back to you. And but I don't think you can fully like latch onto that and believe it until like you have these life experiences, or you do things that like open your eyes to like wow, this is all connected somehow. I don't know how. Like I couldn't explain it to you. Like I have no idea.
You never know podcast. That's,
right. Yeah.
We don't know shit.
And I don't know shit about that, or how that works, or why that works like that. But it just does. And I don't know why, and I don't know if it's because like in some way we're all connected somehow with everything that's
I mean, if
in
you
this
zoom
world.
out, we're on a fucking rock spinning through blackness.
Yeah, a big ass rock that's spinning.
And
super
we're here
fast.
like wondering, like you're wondering about like spin rates. You know, I mean, on fucking baseball. Like, and meanwhile, we're literally floating through cyberspace. And no one knows what's happening or why we're here. It would be an unfortunate miss. And this is my viewpoint and why I even have the conversations and steer them this way. It would be an unfortunate misuse of your time to not grow in that aspect. Can't force it. Like you said, like you experience it and you said, hey, I didn't, you know, like that didn't make sense to me. That didn't make sense. Last time we spoke, even you've changed to kind of acknowledge that. I would wager, there's no way to quantify it, but I had this same idea with Max. I would wager, I would say it is more productive for most guys in the big leagues or in professional sports, or really think in general, more so this athletic performance realm, right? When you are so gifted and so programmed, your body knows exactly, you don't have to think, I need to lift my leg at this time and it's all natural to you. You know what I mean? It's so ingrained in you that it would serve you more to spend, instead of 20 minutes, that Milwaukee Brewers fans are gonna come at me. No, I'm saying instead of the extra 20 hacks or the extra 20 minutes looking at tape or whatever you do, right? I don't even know what the hell you guys do these days. It's probably very advanced. If you spent 20 minutes in silence, focusing on your breath, getting back to a source energy of just like, yeah, I've done everything I can. I am great at this. And I'm gonna have fucking fun and be present out there. And you live in that world, you bring that energy to the plate, you bring that energy out there, and it will take time. And for a lot of athletes, it's like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, I'm competing. This is like the woo-woo spiritual shit doesn't, you know, it almost clashes with being an athlete in some ways, in the sense of like, bro, this is performance-based. Like, you know what I mean? I need to fucking be prepared. My argument is that that's actually the next level of preparation, is this mental clarity that is such a grind to achieve. You, again, very, very, I would say, I mean, I don't know your in and outs of day, but I'm pretty good at reading people. You have a natural homeostasis of kind of peace and laid back. you know, I think there's shit going on inside, and you know, and especially when you're being challenged by life, you could be stressed out, you know. But that would be my wager. That you could spend. Do you spend any time in stillness? Do you do that shit? I know I asked you 2 years ago.
More so now, and I think to get to that point, or to get to where you're talking about, to where you're like even interested in going down that road, like you have to experience something that pushes you down that road. Especially athlete wise,
It's
because
true.
you're like, oh no, like I'm good, man. Like I'm.
Nope, it happened to me. I got knocked on my ass for a relationship and life. And you're right. I got that same low that you might feel when you struggle. Like, got everyone. I really feel like most everyone gets pushed into those, or experiences these lows of life, and that's really where you start searching. That's what religion's so big, and faith. It just trust, and you know.
But I think you go looking for something to like either like you said, help you deal with things or explain it.
Right.
Or help you understand it better. And whether that, you know, that's your mental journey, or like you said, like through relationships, or, you know, or if all that shit happens at one time, which, you know, it happens, and, you know, you don't really have control of like when that stuff does or doesn't happen. But something kind of has to push you down a road to kind of seek it, I think, as an athlete. Like the athlete, the world, it's just this world of like toughness, and like admitting that you need to work on things
is a weakness.
Mentally is a weakness when it's really not. It's not saying that you're not mentally strong, or you're not mentally capable. Like there's just another level there.
Toxic masculinity. It literally is toxic masculinity. You know what I mean? It is.
Or yes, it's that, and it's just a lack of understanding.
Yeah.
I think because until you go down that road or that journey, you can't really understand it. And someone can explain it to you and try to explain it to you, and you're just like, all right, man, like that's cool, bro, but like I'm good. Like I don't need to do that. Like I'm fine. Maybe because like everything's going smooth, like it's smooth sailing. You haven't really hit any of the downs. I wouldn't say the ups or the downs. It's the downs. You haven't hit the downs yet, so you don't really.
Lows. Let's go highs and lows.
Yeah, you don't.
My branding.
Right. Yeah. You don't need the lows. You don't need the lows. Which. So yeah, once you have to, I think, kind of experience that stuff, whether that's performance based, whether that's a relationship that knocks you on your ass, whether that's performance that knocks you on your ass, or whatever it may be. It could be literally anything, but you have to experience that before you kind of, I think, for me to like seek that journey.
Yeah, it's dope to hear. It's just, you know, like you said, I actually had a podcast a few days ago, and the guy was like, I think, you know, he's asking me what Mike stood for. This new, you know, I rebranded from Mike Stud to Mike. They're so different. Mike Stud was this party asshole, you know, fucking we're having as much fun and hitting as many home runs as we can.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have Mike without Mike Stud.
Exactly. You know? Exactly. But what I thought about it, and I actually really liked what came to mind, and it was I really liked what comes to mind, and it was change. Like Mike, the rebrand, who I feel, or what I feel like I'm kind of wearing as the brand is like personal change and growth and exploring life. And it's a beautiful thing to actually be present for your own change and almost steer it. If you get what I mean, what I'm trying to like hint at a little bit, or really what I just share my truth, you know what I mean? And it's like literally from a place of, look, dude, I don't know what the hell's going on. I'm trying to share what works for me. You know what I mean? But this level of peace, operating from a level of peace, which is only achieved through practice, I think personally sets you up for a better performance. And I think that level of peace that you're capable of now, going through some struggles and also just challenging yourself to be present even in the struggles, is work that is so important. I said something once, it was like, I really stand by, like, I have a hard time sitting down and really chopping it up with someone who hasn't struggled. You know what I mean? I really do think hardships, they fucking craft you, and you get all your sauce from it. You could be so good and so dope at what you do, but if you haven't struggled and persevered in that realm, or just in life in general, you kind of lack it. You lack something for me. It might be subconscious, but I do feel as though it's part of the human condition to struggle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, maybe you lack an understanding. I mean, and for me, like, I don't want this to come across as like this is all like,
oh no,
no, it's like just baseball related lows, because it's not like, yeah, it's a factor, but I think it's just like this. It's life stuff too, It's not all come from like me kind of going on like this mental journey or just like having this different perspective of life. It's not because solely of baseball and not performing the way I wanted to play at baseball. It's just been a life shift and a life perspective because of baseball, but then things like off the field too, and like realizing like what's important and just different experiences and
no, I think that's coming
and all those things, and maybe that's maturity. I don't know, but I think a lot of it is maturity, but I think a lot of it is just like this, just stacking like these experiences. And what up, Steve?
He's so needy. This guy. I think
he just wants some attention. Is the mic stand blocking you, bro?
Steve, let him.
There we go.
Steve, just chill out, bro.
I think it's just like it's just a combination of all those things, and I think you come out the other side better. But I think it's also like it's a constant work in progress. But it allows you to understand other people better too.
Yeah,
I think
facts.
Because
facts.
You just see everyone differently, or like someone's an asshole to you, and you're like, like instead of being like "fuck you, man," you're probably just like, wow, like this. Someone's probably like dealing with some shit that they're just having a hard time like dealing with or like expressing. So that's why they're like that. Like you don't take anything personally.
Couldn't have said any better. Man. The hardships, the empathy, the empathy gained as a person. If you don't have empathy or self-awareness, that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, it's not really, you just don't, you lack, I call it the sauce. It's just like, it makes you a much doper human being if you have it, especially through an experience like that.
And like, we've all done and said things that we're like, oh shit, like I wish I didn't do that. Like, why did you do that? And there's a element of forgiveness to yourself, like personally, but also like to other people, to where you're just like, someone wants to like come or you just don't take things as personal anymore. At least I don't, or I just have like a different perspective on just people. Yeah. And that's through like everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Shifting a little bit, we talked about right before we hopped on your off season so far, and kind of said it's like been one of the best. What is the day-to-day on the off season? It don't even go through regiment. I just mean generally speaking, like what are you giving your energy to in the off season?
Just, so my favorite thing this off season is just like, I'm up pretty early now. Like maybe that's because I'm getting old now too.
Yeah. So
I'm up early. And so being here, the best part of the day is the sunrise, dude. Like there's just like this piece about it. And like, I have this routine where I just I like drinking coffee. Like I love coffee.
Yeah.
And so I just drink a coffee and look out at the water and watch the sunrise and kind of just have
pretty much
this,
what we do every day here.
Yeah. Just have like this like gratitude feeling of just like, you're just sitting there like, how the fuck did all this happen? Sometimes you're like, this is super cool.
It's so dope that you do that.
Yeah. And like literally it happened today. Like literally watch the sun like come up over like the horizon. You could like see it happen and you're just like, this is like pretty cool.
Yeah.
And just a good way to start the day. And there's like that 15-20 minute period where you're just kind of hanging out and like no matter what you have, like you could have the craziest, busiest day ahead of you, but for that like 15-20 minutes, it's just like peace.
Yeah. And
you're just kind of chilling, and you got to have, whether it's self-reflection or you're kind of just staring out.
There's a meditative value to what exactly.
Or you're just staring out into nothing, just watching the sun, like looking at like, wow, this is a really beautiful day. Like how the hell did my life end up to where like I can sit here and watch the sunrise over the water?
You look at the abyss long enough, the abyss, what'd you say?
It's like the best 2 times of the day, the sunrise and the sunset.
I spend most of my day. I mean, if you told me 10 years ago or 7 years ago, like, the music thing's gonna work out, and you'd spend 7 years from now, you're gonna be spending a lot of your day looking out at the ocean, no one around. I'd be like, what?
Yeah.
You know? Someone put it this way: it's like you stare out into the abyss long enough, the abyss, the abyss becomes part of you, and you take it with you. Almost like the vastness of it all, how big it all is, and how small we may be, and just something about that notion of, I call it watching a movie. This shit's a movie. Every single fucking day, the sky is God's art. The universe is art that day.
It is.
And it's a movie, bro. Like, we're so consumed, especially guys like you, guys like me. We're the main character of the movie. You watch me. I have to be the movie star. But like sitting there and actually being like, no, I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna watch. Even if you're on the field with that aspect, I don't know. That's kind of interesting to think about.
There's something cool about it.
Making it less like about, oh my God, I have to be the star and perform, and like actually taking a front row seat to like, holy shit, this shit is fucking wild. Especially your life. Like as much as it can kind of probably become mundane to show up to the ballpark every day, and that's human. There's nothing wrong about that at all. That's the fact of kind of showing up to something repeatedly for an overextended period of time.
Yeah.
But just this entire notion of, I guess, growing up is kind of what we're talking about. It seems like you're chipping away at an incredible awareness through it all, and a great spot. I mean, when you say you have that 15, 20 minute talking about meditation, let me bully you a little further. And like after that sunrise, just give it a whirl. Just go silent, focus on the breath, and just sit there in stillness for a while. I think it will be a little bit of a trick potentially into taking the abyss with you, taking the ocean with you. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
we talked about it down there. Scientifically speaking, serotonin, I'm a big Dr. Huberman. He's an incredible neurologist, neuroscientist, and tries to break it down in layman's terms. He talks about the brain and all these things that we encounter in life and how our brain reacts and digests things. And I mean, we have huge levels of serotonin, dopamine hits from meditative states, from looking at the water's in view. And it's an interesting thing to try to think about in regards to your growth as a person and player going forward. Seems as though you understand you're taking those downloads. I call them downloads, like you're taking it with you to a certain extent. Now, to finish that kind of question, that's your morning. What is a busy day for you? What is it for? Are you doing some commercial shit? Or are you just working out? What is it? You have family out here?
Yeah, I got friends and family and stuff out here. I mean, it's different. It's different every day. There's some weeks where it's just really not too busy.
Yeah.
And then there's some weeks where it is busy and you've got stuff lined up, daily or even.
What gets you out of bed on those days?
The busy days? Or the quiet ones, just to
be alive.
Yeah, just enjoy them. Just because I value those days so much of where there's nothing going on, because I know what's coming here in whatever it is, 6 weeks. You know, I know what's about to happen. So I love those days. Those days are great to where you can do whatever you want. There's nothing required of you that day. That you can do nothing if you want. You could do everything if you want. It's totally up to you.
Yeah.
And I've had that thought of I've been sitting there and be like, man, I would usually be super bored right now. There's nowhere else I'd rather be.
I can resonate with that so much.
Where you're like, wow, I used to be if this was happening, I'd be like, man, I wish I was doing something. And now you're just like, man, this is perfect.
Yeah.
And it's just
that's great, man.
It's just a weird shift, or maybe it's not even weird. Maybe it's a natural shift.
Beautiful.
I think weird is not the right term for it.
Well, everything's a little weird, right? This whole thing. Just being alive, like you said, when you watch, sometimes you're like, what the fuck is this? You're watching the sunset. If you really dial into it, you're like, what the fuck is going on? Yeah. Which I think that practice is just very valuable. I think it's dope. It's dope that you have your own version of it, but it's...
Yeah, I think just expressing gratitude helps a lot. Just be this is so cool, whether...
Yeah.
And it's not just because you have all these things is why you express gratitude. Because we talked about earlier, it's not the things, the tangible, materialistic things that make you happy. It's just
It's quick. I want to elaborate on that a little bit. So materialistically speaking, you've won at such a high level that most people listening to this that will ever listen to it, or just generally walking planet Earth, are not going to experience. That's
Right.
the reality of it. Being a guy who truly understands that that's not what gets your rocks off and it's not what it's about for you. It's an amazing responsibility that you have to yourself to then utilize the rest of your time once the baseball career is done and you walk away from the game. Have you thought about what that responsibility it means to you in regards to just things that you think about wanting to do? And I want to elaborate. It's just a very rare seat to sit in. Let's say you play another 10 years. That's a long, maybe you will, right? Play 10 years. You're still going to be, 41 with more money than you can spend. And the reason that's important to this is that most people don't understand the level of responsibility that comes with it, in a sense, to yourself. To be happy then, knowing that you don't have to go and answer to anyone, it's such a great gift. Such a great gift to be alive and not have to worry. You know what I mean? Not have to worry about the day-to-day bills. I need to be able to provide for my family. That's all off. Now you have this canvas, and it can be very daunting for athletes, like this blank canvas of like, how am I going to paint this? I can do anything. You know what I mean? I no longer have any of the regiment that was my demands. You know, do you want to have a family? Do you want to travel the world? Have you even thought about it yet?
No, I mean, I definitely want to have a family. I definitely want to travel, just because it's experiences. You know, like you grinded and you've done all this, so you have the ability to do that. Yeah, and I definitely want to do that. I definitely want to have a family, kids, and travel and do that whole deal. And even that's been something that's like the last few years, like realized like, all right, yeah, I definitely want to do that. Because like if you ask me like 5 years ago if you want to have kids, I'd be like, I don't know. Like I didn't even like really think about it, or like wasn't even at a point in my life where like I was like, yeah, I mean, yeah, probably, but I don't know. Like now I can be like, yeah, I do want to do that. Yeah. And you want to have those life experiences. And for me, it's important. Like I don't, whoever you end up with in a relationship, you end up marrying and having kids with, or whoever you have kids with, for me personally, I'd like them to at least have experienced the baseball life for a little bit too, because just to have some perspective on why there's all these things. Like if you come into it at the end when it's all done and you just see, house, cars, trips, and it's all really nice things. I don't think there's the same level of appreciation for why there's all these things. You don't see the highs, the lows, the lonely nights, everyone, cheering for you, or everyone booing you, or you make the last out of a postseason series and like you feel like the whole world hates you. Yeah. And that's definitely not true, but it feels like that in that moment where so for me, it's important that someone's there, that someone experiences that, because it gives you an appreciation for the other things. Like,
I've never heard it put that way. That's interesting.
So like if you to experience that, and then you have like this perspective on like, oh wow, like this is why there's all these things, instead of like, oh yeah, this is all great. Like this must have been awesome the whole way while you were doing this thing. This was an amazing life, which it was. But there was definitely this road and this journey that occurred along the way.
You mentioned something earlier, we didn't get to talk on it, but it was about these. You clarified. You're like, oh, this whole mental growth or even emotional struggles of its success and failures is not just baseball related. There's this personal life element to it that just gets swept under the rug because it's just not. It's show business. You know what I mean? It's like we don't give a fuck. Yeah. You know what I mean? Tell us why you didn't hit that out of the park. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? But the personal life, I guess the way I'll put it is limitations. The reality of the limitations. Now, you saying, hey, like, that sounds like it's something that means something to you, that you want to have a partner, a life partner who maybe went through this stuff with you. And, you know, for lack of a better word, you know, you use the word pause. It's like that person also needs to be okay with you pausing, like all the shit that she wants to do with you. You know,
it's not for everyone. Let me tell you.
Yeah, it's not for the faint of
definitely
heart.
Not for everyone. They think everyone. It sounds appealing. It sounds appealing at first to be a part of that. To be a part of that life, and to like, oh wow, from the outside in, it looks like it's this super glamorous life all the time. And there's definitely elements to that. That's definitely true to an extent. But then there's also like this flip side of this really large time commitment with a lot of travel and a lot of stress and pressure over the course of this year. Yeah. You live in 3 different cities for extended periods of time. And you're not available. Like if someone's getting married, you can't just be like, I'll see you guys in 3 days. I got this wedding to go to in June. Like, no,
that's a great fucking point.
You're not going to that. Or, you know, whatever happens over those 7 months, like you're not going. Like there's this awesome event, this awesome party, like you got to go. Like I'm not going. Or there's this wedding, like I'm not going to be there. Sorry.
Deeper than that, even, and I think this is interesting for people to hear, just the lack of availability to be there emotionally for somebody that is your wife. Like somebody, I'm in a relationship for the first time where I have that connectivity to somebody where their happiness and their peace is so important to me.
Yeah.
And when you love somebody and their peace and well-being and happiness is so important to you, yet you're not available to be there. And you're also more than likely a fucking shortcoming to them, no matter how great you are as a husband or a partner, because you're just flat out not available.
Yeah. I mean, at times, right? So I think, you know, I've gone through seasons in a relationship and not in a relationship. I think there's elements to like going through like a baseball season in a relationship that's actually like a huge positive. You can make it a positive because it's an outlet. It's an escape from like baseball. Like you could suck that night, and like if you're single, you're probably going home like hanging out solo by yourself, being like, oh wow, like that fucking sucked tonight. Like that's terrible. But if you're in a relationship with somebody, like you come home and like you talk, you get to talk about,
you roll into fetal position and
like, oh, it's gonna be all right. Like, don't worry about it. You did great. You hit it 4 times. Like that's sure. But
100%. Yeah.
There's an element to where like it's gone, and like you can get some, you know, being there for somebody, it kind of takes your mind off of the grind and the monotony of the baseball season. Now, you know, if there's a dinner party or there's a wedding that she has to go to and like wants you to come to as a date or things like that, or you want to go to this show or like this concert or something, like you just can't do it because it's just not allowed. Like you can't just be like, oh, I'm not gonna play tonight. I'm gonna go to this wedding back home for like a few days. I'll see you guys in the next city.
My wife or my girlfriend is struggling mentally. Something happened to her. Mm-hmm. This is kind of more so what I'm leaning into. Yeah. This is like, oh, like you know how life happens. Like and there's a lot of times they can be compounding. Like you can be struggling and then some other shit's going down that just innately causes pressure or pain for you. But what I'm saying is like that person, your partner, needs to subscribe to the fact that like when she needs to be consoled or when she needs to be held after a bad day, or if she needs to talk about what's happening in the office with somebody and you're her best friend, you're fucking busy as fuck. You're playing a game. You're at how many hours a day are you at the field?
Man, at least 10 most
10
days.
hours.
Yeah, at least 10. I mean, that's without a travel afterwards.
Sleep, travel, eating, resting, second for yourself. Think about how hard it is to then be an accountable partner to your wife or your other half, whoever that may be, you know?
It takes a lot of effort, and I think it takes and it's going to take a special person that has a little bit of like it's going to take a lot of strength, but a little bit of independence to where like I got this shit. Like I can do it on my own. Like, you know, and the thing is like the baseball life, it doesn't last forever. So there's going to be a time where you are there all the time and you're able
That's
to.
the pot of gold for the
and
life.
you're able to make up for it. And I think you will be, because you're going to appreciate the person that went through the grind with you 100%. When you had this time commitment. So when it comes back on you, you're going to apply yourself in the same way to her that she did to you.
Do you feel pressure personally to try to fulfill that for yourself?
As far as finding that person?
Yeah, given you do want that. You do want somebody on this side. You want to, you're going to spend the rest of your lives together, hopefully, right? But you're saying you want them to kind of be a part of this as well. You know what I mean? Is that something that you yearn for or have angst about, or is it just something that you're open to however it flows?
I mean, I think it is one of those things that like, it is what it is. Like most of the time when you meet someone that you end up dating, you don't really like, you're not like, oh, like we're gonna go to dinner tonight. I'm gonna find this girl that I'm gonna date. Like it just kind of happens. I think the lifestyle, it makes it more challenging, like exponentially more challenging. Because you're on the road so much and you're in all these different cities that you don't necessarily like. You're not gonna really live there. Like you're there for 3 days or 4 days, and then you pack up and you're on a new city, or in Milwaukee or Cincinnati or St. Louis or New York or Pittsburgh or wherever it may be. It's so much travel. So I feel like that can be a challenge at times. It's not impossible, because it's definitely happened.
Right.
But,
and being single while competing at the highest level. And you got this like little, like, it's different. I got a girl, I don't even fucking think about going out anymore. I also, it was time for me to digress, Do you, how real is that aspect on comparatively to the seasons you've been single versus not? How often are you toggling between like, I should have a girl come over, or like, I'll go on a date, or, we're going to go out and have a beer. And this other aspect of how you're, this work life, human experience balance that you're trying to
it's
create.
so hard because most of the time you're so tired, like you're so tired, whether that's like mentally or physically, from like what you just had to put in at the
10 years 10 hours at the park for 10 years.
At the stadium, you're just like, I'm just so tired, like having to go home, like change, go out, and you're
which is exhausting,
right? And then you're like, I'm gonna go out, and then like tomorrow I'm gonna feel so tired if I do this. So, like I just don't even want to. I'd rather just chill and sleep and then like feel good in the morning. So I think
this is what the big leagues is like, fellas.
And it's not always like that. It eventually turns into that. I've definitely had times where I would go out all the time and do that. I think
you were out with Baker a little bit at a period of time. Are you still buddies with Baker?
Yeah. I saw him when he was
my guy.
When he was playing out here with the Rams, we got together a few times.
Oh, good.
Awesome guy, man. He's a really good dude.
Shit. He's my guy.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've gone out. It's been probably 5 years, 6 years,
Oh, has it been?
Since we've like gone out. I think he's changed too, as far as but he's married and stuff. He's married and stuff.
Yeah,
and,
he has for sure.
I think like you were saying though, like as you get older, like just like going out and doing all this stuff, it doesn't sound as appealing. I feel like sometimes you kind of feel like you have to, in a sense, especially when you're single, you kind of feel like I kind of need to go out. Like I don't really want to, but you feel like I probably should.
Yeah, because that happenstance, that chance that you might meet the person, or just gonna go out and have a fucking great time, and you're a fucking young guy with testosterone and wants to run into a attractive lady.
Yeah, but I think
literally and figuratively.
Yeah, and I think the kind of person, that you look for changes too.
Yeah.
And me personally, like, I don't think I would have like I didn't have any like kind of clue as far as like what you would like look for in a person that you would want to date and settle down with until like, probably within like the last few years. Like, okay, this is important. This isn't. This will be good. Just because it's such a unique life, and like you said, really from the outside in, it looks super appealing, and there's definitely elements of it, but it's not for everyone. And people think they can do it until they have to do it, and they're like, "You're never around. Like I can't do this." And it's like, well, like I'm sorry, like that part of my life, even if I wanted to change, it can't change. It's not going to change, like because, that's just,
I mean,
that's just how it
you
is.
can't fucking go anywhere in Milwaukee, period. That's
Yeah,
your
it's
home.
just,
Like where you're not going to go out and have any privacy anywhere.
yeah. So yeah, and that's an interesting way to live life too.
It is,
like you
dude.
feel like when you go somewhere, you just feel like it's like you just have to go like all right, here we go. Like when you go through your door, like to leave, because you know what comes along with that, or you feel like even if you wanted to go sit at a restaurant or a bar by yourself and just hang out and get away and just like relax, like you just can't. It's not going to happen there. Like, a lot of places now.
A lot of places. Yeah.
And that's fine. It just takes getting used to, and it's not normal, I think. And there's some times where that goes back to the highs and the lows, where you're just like, sometimes when you are in the lows, you're like, I don't want to go out because I feel like sometimes like you go out, you feel like everyone's watching you, and you're like, this doesn't happen, or maybe it does, but you feel like everyone's watching you. You're like, that's the
I
motherfucker.
guarantee when you step out in Milwaukee, everyone's watching.
Everyone's watching you, but when you're in like the low period, you feel like that's the
judging you.
motherfucker that sucks right there, or like that's the like you feel like the world kind of is like looking at you, and you feel kind of trapped sometimes,
Right.
And so it's difficult until you kind of realize like you kind of have to get to the point where you're like, I just don't care. Like I'm gonna go out. This is my life. Like if people say hi to me, like cool, whatever. I don't care. But it takes a while to get to that point.
Just took a little pee break here at Stevenson Ranch. We're gonna keep this thing rolling. We're racing the sun a little bit, but incredible dialogue. Thanks again for coming on, brother.
Appreciate it, dude.
We I wanna segue in a few other things. I think again, a lot of people when I polled the crowd, they want to just know a little more about some non-baseball things, which I think we've touched on.
We definitely covered it.
We've covered that.
Yeah.
But even more so, like, what's some of the stuff that you're using in your life currently as just getaways? Is it obviously we touched on the off season, and we touched on this checking in with nature and the ocean and sunrise, and how big of a role is music in your life? I mean, also let's not rush by the fact that Walked Out to Blue Water, which is one of my records.
I did.
Which I feel ties into our conversation about
Because of
water.
this, yeah.
Yeah.
The reason for that was just because it kind of just resonated, and it just like felt appropriate, because like truly when you are like looking out at the blue water, like it's just a sense of peace and like calmness, and just this mental state of just like where I personally like wanted to be, and like spend
the abyss with you,
and just spend the most time in. And I think that's like a constant it was kind of just like it's like a constant reminder, and just like put yourself in like that place, but yeah, music's a big part of it. But I think for me, I've tried to like combine it with these other elements sometimes.
Yeah.
Just to kind of get the most out of it. For me, like my favorite thing that and music's weird like that. Like it's kind of like where you'll like hear a song and it takes you back, right? To like whatever you were doing at the time when you had it. But like one of my favorite things that I did this off season was I went to Park City, Utah, and
fucking amazing place.
And it was before like the madness and the rush. We kind of got lucky. It snowed there.
Can you throw me a dip?
It snowed there earlier, I guess, than it usually does. We went like
Park City's amazing.
Yeah. And so we went snowmobiling in the mountains, and it was just like there was nobody around, nothing. Like it was just like this whoever else was supposed to go with us, like the other part of what a catch, by the way. What a play. Just a good play. Yeah.
Nice. How it worked out.
Just a Gold Glover.
Still got it,
There was something about that, dude, where whoever was supposed to, like the other people that were supposed to come on the tour there with us, or the thing, like they just no showed, or like they were late. So we went out with like the guide by ourselves, and we were like in the middle of the mountains in Utah, like literally nobody else around, and it was snowing, like a light snow, and we were on like this like frozen lake or opening in the middle of these mountains. And like I remember during that, like actually physically like looking around being like, this is like actually incredible. Like take mental pictures of this because this is so beautiful and
downloaded
peaceful. As much as I could have, like I like made a like point to like look around and be like, all right, like remember this because you're gonna want to be back here at some point.
Right, I resonate with so many things you've said today. I mean, even just talking about the music and the blue water, that's what I was trying to do in song form. Then I have a song Mountaintops, which is like, it's exactly, so many of these moments that you're talking about are just, they're really important data points for yourself. You grab them, you take them with you.
Yeah,
they
shape you in a way.
Yeah.
I think they shape you as far as like what you want to feel. Like if there's something about it where it's just like, I don't know, there's nothing else around. There's nothing else that really like mattered at the time. You're kind of just like there looking around, just in a sense, just living, you know, like you're just, you're existing. You're just like looking around and being like, wow, like this is beautiful. Like this is amazing right here. Like, take it all in. Like the middle of Utah, it's snowing. There's literally nobody else around. Like if they left you there, like you're fucked because there's nobody around. Like you don't know where you're going. Like
these are this communion with nature that you obviously understand is really important.
Yeah, and it was just like that moment, like that trip was amazing, like to that area, but that moment and that like those few hours were by far like my favorite part of this entire off season. And I don't know why. Like it was just something about it where I was just kind of like looking around.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Just being like, this is all perfect. Like, this is amazing. And I was like, there's literally nowhere else I'd rather be.
Taking that with you onto the field, should be a goal.
Yeah. Well,
what you just said though.
Right.
If you're able to witness that and understand that it's perfect, then so is you being on the field right at this exact time, being right here in this life, struggling good or bad, hitting well, not hitting. It's all perfect.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
But I think like things like that allow you to be in that state while you're playing. Like you need that to have the other.
Absolutely.
And that's why I was telling you, like this off season has just been a really good one because there's been a lot of been a lot of that. And not to say like I've definitely worked hard this off season. But there's been more of a focus on that part of it where that it's definitely lacked in the past because before it was just like baseball season, couple week break, prepare to get ready for next baseball season, you know? And there's never this time to just like recharge and get away and just live because like we were talking about, there is a set time where you can actually have like this freedom to live and do things and travel within the confines of like having a baseball career because there's this basically 7-8 month window where you can't because you have to work and you're playing and doing this whole deal. So that was like a focus and a goal of mine going into the off season. Like even while the season was still going on, I was like, you know what? Like this off season, like
that you realize
I'm doing this and like I need this in a sense to just do it and to just, you know, in a way it's for baseball and it's going to make you play better. You know,
nail on the head.
I did it for me and because like I wanted to, and I was like, you know, you need to live this life, but as a kind of trickle down effect, it's going to have a positive impact on baseball too.
It's spot on, and it's everything I believe in. It's somebody I follow closely. His name's Rick Rubin. He's a Malibu guy, one of the legendary producer. But he just released a book that I'm gonna tell you should listen to or whatever. But we're kind of all artists. Being alive, there's a sense of artistry to it. You're creating your life. And it's a blank canvas, and the canvas can be wiped clean many times, you know, but understanding that, and also what you said, how you called it a trickle down, but really it's a yin and a yang. It's like, there's no output without input. Like you need to change your input and get this input, get these downloads.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In order to have the output that you want to have, you want to create every single day we get up, you know, like you said, like that gets you out of bed. The idea that there's another day and like another opportunity to create. And it could be so different than what you considered you thought would be great days. That's constantly changing. A great day to you, none. You had such a productive off season of being, less doing.
And I had that conversation with somebody during the year. It was a buddy, and he was like, you know, man, like you need more inputs in your life. Like you have so many outputs for so many different people in your life. Like every day is just like it's an output. It's an output. This is expected to be. You have to do this. You have to do this. And he's like, what do you do for like yourself every day? I was like, nothing. Like I couldn't think of anything. I was like, oh shit. Like I need to make more of a conscious effort to do that, because it makes you a more well-rounded person, and you just have to make a conscious effort to do it though. I think like you have to have a game plan to do it.
It's coming full circle back to that notion though of making it like what we were talking about, how I would almost wager it's more important. It'd be more productive to just sit down and be still in a moment of gratitude versus getting 30 more swings.
For sure.
It's like this whole thing that you're kind of arriving at. I think it's like, I really do think at a certain level, everyone is so talented athletically.
100%.
Where does the growth? It's your job to then continue to grow as a person, to then continue improving your experience as an athlete, improving your perspective as an athlete, which I think with an easier, more balanced outlook on the game and what the game really is, it kind of gives you a better viewpoint on the game, maybe even a better access point to be in the game and enjoying it and playing it. You know what I mean? They say play ball. They don't say fucking work ball.
Work ball, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, this is a game. It's a dance. Your life, what you're talking about, all these new experiences, I would call them creative experiences.
Right.
Just being out in the fucking,
Yeah, and I think, like you said, when you get to a certain level athletically, but probably anywhere, like in any field or any place of work, like once you get to a certain level, it's not physical anymore. Like lack of performance or if things start going sideways on you, it's probably not because like your body physically forgot how to do these things. Like it didn't happen. Like you've done
I would argue it's definitely not. It's mental.
Yeah, it's mental. I mean? And what kind of mental is it? Like, you know, is it from you're lacking something? Is it like you haven't experienced these things, or you've spun out somehow through, whether that's anxiety, but where's your anxiety coming from? Like, I think you have to like take a journey within yourself, each person individually, because like I could tell, you know, if I told you like what worked for me, it might not work for you or whatnot, because we have different things that you're, you know, I don't really want to say lacking, but maybe like searching for.
Quite literally different DNA.
Yeah.
And different, we've had totally different lives and experiences.
Kind of, yeah.
Like, but you know, like
yes and no, yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but you know what I mean? Different parents, different neighborhood, different
for sure
teacher, different, you know.
Right, 100%. But I think finding that is super important. It allows you to unlock that physical stuff again.
Yeah.
As far as just like,
it's exciting.
Yeah.
It's exciting. I'm excited to see you take this into the next level of your life, you know. There's obviously a lot of baseball to be played. Who knows? You know, you never know how life works out, but these important steps that you're taking as a person, I mean, it's what it's all about, bro. You said earlier, you're like, I take so much pride in feeling like I look back at an older version of myself and I'm like, man, I've changed a lot. I think that's a beautiful thing, you know?
Yeah.
And given our, like, just 2 years time, you feel like so much is different about you.
A ton. Like, I don't think you realize it in the day to day, but then when you like take time to step back and look at it, you really realize like, oh wow, I've come a long way. But to come that long way, like you're like, there was some shit in there, you know, for sure. And it's been really cool though. I think I'm grateful for it now. I think, you know, it wasn't a great time really like going through all that stuff and having to understand it. And for me, it was just such a combination of things. I think it was just like where you're at in life, career wise, like having like this realization of like all like the time commitment to it, your life changing personally with like expectations, contracts, you know, getting older, 10 years in the league, just friends, family, everybody, them kind of like getting older, you transitioning to, you know, and I think an underrated part of like being an athlete is like the transition to becoming like one of the older guys is like a weird feeling because, you know, not to say that you don't have anything in common with the young guy, because you definitely have a lot in common because you live those experiences and that was you at one point.
Yeah.
But it's definitely different in the sense of like the interest and like the point of where you're at and you're like, you guys are, it's totally different.
Yeah.
And it's the first time where you have that feeling of like, oh shit, like
has getting older been daunting to you? Or are you, I know how you view it because you already answered the question, how much growth you feel like you've gone through just the last few years. But you said something out there, and I could relate to it because I'm a few years older than you, and we've had this dialogue with my buddies just about like, you feel so goddamn young, man. Like, what the fuck, you know?
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it. Like,
yeah, is it knowing there's a clock to being good enough to play baseball, just able-bodied, and you know, does the age aspect, did you have a time where you felt like a little down about it, or even that's what the midlife crisis really is, right? It's a thing because people are like, fuck, I'm getting older and like
100%.
I'm past, someone's dying outside because there's a lot. Hopefully not.
Fire truck.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Or was that something you just bodied and moved forward with? Like talking about this age dynamic?
I think it happens. And for me, it wasn't necessarily like, oh shit, like I'm not going to be able to play baseball forever. Because I think I've realized that. And like, baseball's what I do, not who I am. I've always kind of been that way.
Yeah.
To a lot of people, like baseball is what you are and who you always will be.
Yeah.
But people that know you and who are around you, like I've known like that's just like it's a part of my life. I'm super grateful for that part of my life.
Right.
And like I want to enjoy it as much as I can.
Right.
For me, it was just like, holy shit, like where did all the time go? Like how did that happen? How did that happen so fast? Because it definitely doesn't feel like you said, it doesn't feel like you're in your 30s or you've played for that long in baseball, or like, you know, it feels like I feel like I was in high school not too long ago, honestly. Like, you know what I mean? And there's been so much stuff that's happened. Since like graduating high school till like now, there's a ton of shit that's happened, but it doesn't really feel like it's that long ago. But then like that kind of hits you because like you start to see like the change in everybody else. And that's what I was talking about as far as like the pause button. When baseball season starts, because you see everybody 8 months later again, and like they've lived like another year of their life, whether that's like your friends or your family, and like they've had things happen. There's been events, people have kids, they get engaged, they, you know, family members get older, and you realize like how precious time is and what's like required of you to do what you have to do, and like what kind of sacrifice that is, and like time's super valuable. And I think as you get older, you realize that, like how fast it goes by.
Yeah.
And so that's been the thing for me. It's been like, oh shit, like 5 years is going to go by like that, because it already has. This is going to be my 6th season with the Brewers, and it doesn't even feel like it's even
crazy
that close.
Do you, what was it? Other team than the Brewers?
Yeah. Marlins and Brewers.
Miami to Milwaukee, very vastly different places.
Yeah.
Sounds like through all of our dialogue, you understand that things happen the way they're supposed to happen, or at least that needs to be the outlook.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it was a kind of stars aligning Milwaukee? Do you think that the process that you've gone through, be it the highs, the lows, the MVP, even just coming down from an MVP, and just the entire experience itself, right? Do you think it looks totally different if you stayed in Miami?
Probably. I don't know why, but I think you're always, you know, whether you like it or not, like whether you're happy with where you're at or you're upset with where you're at, I think you're always right where you should be. And you have to understand why you're at that place. I think that's kind of the journey. And you shouldn't always be like yearning for more, like, oh, I wish this was happening, or I wish I had this at this time, or I wish I was like in this place. Like you're right where you're supposed to be. Now you kind of got to figure out why.
Yeah.
And then kind of just take in everything around you, because everything moves so fast, and you're always gonna be looking ahead instead of appreciating like where you're at, and then you're never really gonna get anything out of it. But I don't know how. Like I think I've thought about that a lot. Of like, I don't know what would have happened if I wasn't traded.
Yeah.
Who knows? Like maybe it would have happened like that, but
Yeah.
I truly don't think so, though. Like, I don't think it would have gone the same way.
Probably
like, I
not.
really don't.
It's a beautiful thing.
Right. And like, who knows what's next? Like, you know, I don't know. I could finish my career with Milwaukee, but like, so much of that stuff is out of your control.
Yeah.
And like in Miami, like I didn't know I was going to get traded to Milwaukee. Like I had no idea. They just call you and tell you where they traded you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I have, if that ever happens again, like I obviously have a little bit more control of like where I would go. But
Right.
If there ever came a time where they're like, hey, we'd like to trade you, or something like that happen, like, you know, me now would kind of just look at it like, all right, well, I guess this is kind of where I'm supposed to go on this journey.
Yeah.
And if I spend the rest of my career in Milwaukee, like I'm cool with that too. Like I'm good with wherever I go.
It's a great place to be mentally.
Yeah, but it takes like a long time to get there. And I think it's still for like a work in progress. I think you have good days, you have bad days.
Yeah.
These things are easy to talk about. They're harder to live, I think.
Absolutely.
But for me, like it's just kind of weird how all that stuff works out, and you can't go through all those experiences and then like not accept that like you're where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know, because it just works out that way.
So as you're an athlete and you're living in a fucking literal bubble, and all these things are hyper important for a certain period of time, Steve, relax, Mr. Steve. All right. You've been getting pet the whole time, buddy. Being in that bubble, how aware are you of things that are happening in the world? Are you there at all? Like, you know what I mean? Are you paying attention to what's happening in culture? Are you totally removed? Do you feel like it's a distraction if you are?
No, it's not a distract. I think you're involved to the extent that you can be involved, you know?
Yeah. For you personally. Like,
yeah.
Are there things in your life you're keeping up on?
It probably just depends. It depends what it is, I guess. You know, so much of your time is like we've talked about,
10 hours a day
is committed at, you know, and that's at least like that's a regular day where you're not traveling. You don't have to do anything else. Like that's not a double header day or anything like that. Like that's just a standard. Yeah. That's a 7-10 game on a Friday, you know? The other days there's bigger time commitments, but I think you try to, like, you know,
you think it's a supplementary thing? It's kind of a good thing to be able to just.
I think you need outlets. I think it's healthy to like escape it a little bit. Like I don't think you could do 7 months of baseball and all you did and thought about was baseball every hour of every day, because you'd go crazy. Like it's not healthy. You'd lose your mind. Like and you wouldn't be as good as like you could be if you did that. Like there would be limitations on you because you'd just be burnt out, man. Like riding those highs and those lows it's just exhausting, you know?
It's 100% valid. Are there people in your life or in your scope that you really look up to?
Yeah, and I think that changes too over the years of like, I think your circle gets a lot smaller the older you get.
Who are people you look up to? I mean,
I've got a couple really good friends and people that I've been able to meet over the years, for like they have different life experiences than me, or they've known me for like a really long time. You know, my mom's one of them, my brothers, just those people that have been around for so long. Like I really for me, like no matter what happens in your life, like you always have like that kind of home base.
Right.
Like they'll like you. They'll want to be there for you regardless of if you're good at baseball, you're bad at baseball. If you ever even played baseball, like those people will still be around. And then you just get to meet cool people and be around people like we're getting to do this. Like we get to do this right now and talk to people that have good perspectives on things or can relate, because I think there's an element to this life to where, like we talked about earlier, a lot of people can really relate. So when you get a chance to like sit down and talk to somebody about these things, because they can come across as first world problems sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we were talking about earlier, like you feel like guilty in a sense if you're like, wait, like this shit sucks sometimes, or like this is hard. Like you're like, because from the outside looking in is like, yes, like you don't have to worry about certain things like financially or money wise, but that doesn't mean you don't necessarily have problems or things going on in your life. Or but for me, it's always like this tug, like this tug of like, you know, you feel bad when you feel bad, if that makes sense, because you're like, you shouldn't.
Yeah,
but it's still a thing. Like it's
totally fucking resonate.
And it's hard to articulate that and put that in words, but it's like a thing. So when you get to be around similar people or people that have similar experiences in your life, like you can fully talk to them and they can be like, yeah I feel you. Yeah. When other people will listen to you and be like, I understand. But they don't understand.
Connection, human to human connection. There's so many different variations of it, but it's a big part of our being. You know, like you think about why are we here? Or like try to make sense of the world or life. You know, connecting with people and having people relate to you and love you unconditionally, like, you know, people you think of are your closest family members that you look up to, which I think is endearing, and I also agree with it. And it's a gift. You're very lucky to have people like that in your life, because there's some people that just didn't get that opportunity.
Right.
We long for that relation, I think, with people, and again, for guys like us, it might be a little harder, you know, but that's a price we pay. And you know, it kind of teaches you to cherish the ones that are available and that can give that to us. But that's a very human, innate thing. You know, we want to connect with other human beings.
I think so.
And it's important. It's an important aspect of being the best version of yourself as a person, not just as a player, as an athlete. You know what I mean? I think there's a lot of guys who are great players that lack the awareness and the ability to, or maybe just the overall vision to understand that growing in personal success as a human being, that's different than on the field success. It's almost completely different. It's very hard for athletes to understand that, you know, which I understand.
Equally as important, but yeah, it's hard to, it's hard to grasp, because it's not as tangible. I don't think. I don't think you can like quantify it as easy as you can on field success. And for me, like I'm like a pretty private person, like openly. Like if I know you, like I'll kind of open up and you'll know more about me and my life per se. I don't share a ton on social media or anything like that.
Which is dope. I'm a little jealous of that.
Yeah. But for the most part, you know, I'm private except for like those that I'm truly around. Like I think like this conversation, like this podcast is probably like the most I've publicly like opened up about my actual life and like what's going on in it.
It's the Stevenson Ranch way, you know?
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe it's because, you know, we know each other and it's a good conversation, and I feel like we've become, you know, better friends over the years. Like we don't hang out all the time because the schedule doesn't.
It's unspoken.
The schedule doesn't allow it, and you know, we'll text back and forth every now and then. But
check in.
I think there's you know, over the year, like we've known each other for a few years now. Yeah. You know, I don't know what it is.
Beginning.
3-4 years, but there's just like elements of just being able to relate, and just it's important to talk about these things though, I think, because like you said, a lot of people kind of just like, they don't necessarily view you as someone that can be relatable. Or
I can even sense, because I just know you and I know the position, because it's a relatable thing, but there's a sense of like, slightly uncomfortable to even say these things because
Yeah.
you're like, you're coming from a place of privilege and great fortune and great luck. As much as you've earned everything you've gotten, you could argue that you haven't. You were born with this body, with these capabilities. You sharpened your sword. You did everything you needed to. You made every sacrifice. That's why you're here. But you were also given those parents. You were born into this situation that was not free will, not choice, just so happened to be, So you almost feel a little bit of angst about talking about any of the hard parts about it because you don't want to come off disingenuous, or ungrateful,
That, I mean, and I don't like sharing like my personal life publicly because I always feel like it's going to be like oddly judged in a way.
Yeah.
Like you just don't want to like open yourself up to that. And which sounds so stupid because in the grand scheme of things, like we talked about earlier, like nobody really fucking cares. Like they might for a fleeting second.
And if they do, fuck them.
No, yeah. But you have to get to that point where you're like cool with it. And you're like, yeah, like whatever. Like if you liked what I had to say or didn't like what I had to say, or like you judge me for that, like it's cool. Like you don't, it is what it is at this point. But in the past, like I just wouldn't really open up to people or just be very like guarded because like all this stuff was happening so fast that you're just like, you just weren't very trusting of people, or like I wasn't.
Yeah. And that's a valid point.
And I think you kind of have to be in a way just because of like that position that you're in. But there's also like good things to come from like opening up and allowing people to get to know you.
I think that's an incredible takeaway to have because it really is. And all the qualms about it make so much sense. You know what I mean? You don't even depend on anyone's opinion. It's literally like the field and you and performance, and that's your success.
Right.
You don't need fans to understand you. But as a human being, as long as you're getting it in your personal life, I'm glad we can do this, but we could also have this conversation off camera,
For sure.
That you're having those dialogues and that awareness and that perspective gain constantly. It sounds like you have some great people in your life that just do that for you as almost a baseline. It's really important.
Yeah, in a way, but a lot of it, honestly, it's been a solo journey, but it hasn't, to get to like, not like your whole life's been a solo journey, but like the mental shift as far as like the outlook and kind of how I see things has been, a lot of that's just been like a lot of like an inward look of like, all right, like what the fuck's going on? Or like, how do you deal with this? Because people can tell you how to deal with it. Like you can talk to other people and you can get insight, you can get opinions, you can get, knowledge from these people, but at the end of the day, like you have to apply it to yourself and like take the steps in like your life to get the best version of yourself. And it's different.
It's a one-player game. I love saying that because it's true, man. Like
you have to take ownership.
You could lay there next to your wife. She's been there through everything with you 20 years from now, right? Laying there next to her, but your set of circumstances and everything that's going on internally, you're laying down on that bed alone. Like it's a one-player game at the end of the day. You come in alone, you leave alone, and it's great to have partners, if you can find the right partners to share the journey with,
Right.
Who is we're racing the sunset. We're about to get out here and look at it because that's what us guys like us do. But who's your favorite big leaguer right now? Person and just performer.
Person and performer. That's a hard one.
Yeah, you don't even need to just say like, you could even just say some of your best, like who do you think is just a badass? Or you can name a few, or
yeah,
whatever.
I mean, there's a few people that come to mind.
Just like you guys are all amazing athletes and players,
right.
But like just like whoa,
As far as just like talent wise or like who they are,
could be whatever.
A combination of both. I mean, so someone that like will always be like, we'll probably always have like a special kind of bond is Real Muto from the Phillies, JT, because we came into pro ball together like 2 days apart when we first signed. So we've known each other since we were 18 in the GCL and rookie ball. He's from Oklahoma. I'm from California. We're both in high school 2 months prior to that, and now we're both in professional baseball out in Jupiter, Florida, trying to figure out
Yeah.
Like, what is this? What's this journey all about? What do we just get ourselves into? And we were roommates from that point up until we were probably 25 years old. So in rookie ball, low A, high A, double A, few years in the big leagues, like had a lot of major like life events together, like getting called up, debuts, you know, a lot of highs, a lot of lows together. You know, with him when he met his wife, like the night he met his wife, like
That's sick.
we were hanging out together. Got traded in town like the day that he has his kid, first kid.
Wow.
Like we were the visiting team playing in Miami, and then he got traded a year later. But
That's fire.
for me, like we talk about all the time of like we would when we were 18, we'd eat lunch we'd eat lunch and dinner a lot of the times at the Palm Beach Gardens Mall food court, because that's where the hotel was. And neither of us had a car, so we'd walk to the Palm Beach Gardens Mall. And at the time with the Marlins, like we got like this. It looked like a Post-it note, and it'd have pictures of whatever restaurants were in the food court, and you could redeem it for like $8 or $9, I think it was, and then you'd pay the difference, or if whatever you was like less than that, like they would just keep your voucher.
Love that.
So that's how we would eat dinner like most nights, or we'd go to the Yard House.
Far cry from your current reality.
Yeah, but then we would talk about like, hey, do you think we're ever gonna make it to the big leagues, or what do you think's gonna like? And then you shared those conversations and those moments through like low A and high A, and
really
you know,
cool.
I've eaten lunch with that guy at a Chuck E. Cheese before to get pizza, because that's what we were buying in South Carolina, you know. So like, it's cool to it's great pizza. That's why we did it. But
it is. Shout out Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah, and in South Carolina, I remember. I guarantee you he remembers that story too. But it's just like those little things where it's 3 a.m. and you're eating at a rest stop in Alabama, because like that's when the bus needed gas. Mm-hmm. But then he's just become like a really, really, really good player. And like he didn't start catching till then. Like he started learning how to catch that year.
That's crazy.
You know, and to see him from like that and then to where he's become, you know, I think he's the best catcher in baseball right now.
Wow.
Just to see kind of like that journey, like that part will always be special, and you don't really get to share that with anybody else, because like that was the whole journey to like the major leagues. And like we talked about that as recently as this year. Like we get together every time we play a series, and we get a dinner, make sure to go to dinner and just catch up and like look back on.
It's really good.
Like, how do you think how do we end up here, man? Like, how did this happen? But,
really good. It's really good. Cool. It seems like you lean into reflection a lot, which is fucking amazing. It really is. It's a skill set. It's something that it's pretty challenging to do. And fuck, man, it's been an amazing conversation.
It's been good, man. I enjoyed it. I feel like we gotta do it every couple of years to kind of to catch up and just kind of
it's
see.
Just dope to see. Like I'm so different. You are for sure as well. And
we both are. I feel like.
Yeah, and then just to continue on that journey, bro. I wish you the fucking best.
You as well, man.
And love seeing. Hopefully, I'll make some new tunes that you could be using for walkouts. I appreciate.
I don't even think your album hadn't even come out yet. The newest one when we did this the last time.
No, it hadn't.
It hadn't. You were getting ready to, because I think I remember you sent it after after we did this.
I think I was just finished.
Yeah, and it was like a few weeks later is when it came out, and like obviously, you know, your life changed a lot after that, and things happened, but. Like, it's crazy, right?
It is crazy,
look back
man.
on that time.
It is crazy. I've become so much better at reflecting and being present. I had a bit of a struggle with not worrying and running to the next thing, given the freedom that I have in my life. I have a weird amount of freedom. It can be negative. Like,
having too much freedom is not a good thing sometimes. Or you have to be a really strong person to harness that freedom and to like keep yourself grounded, because a lot of people's lives have so much direction and there's not as much freedom. Like, you're free, but you're not really free. You know, like when you're truly free and you kind of have, in a sense, like endless options or like opportunities of what you want to do with your time, it's very hard for you to like focus in on that, and it takes a lot of practice, and you can't judge yourself for like not knowing it at the time or like doing it. I feel like
You're a smart guy, man.
you know, I think, but
Very impressed with not that you need to impress me by any means, but really smart fucking guy. And it's dope to see and dope to hear, and glad we got our paths crossed. I think I just kind of, we had spoken a bit, but I just
I ran into it at a concert, Kane Brown show, like literally right before COVID, and we like exchanged numbers.
That's what it was.
We're talking about doing this. And
what's your favorite genre of music?
I like everything, man. It really just depends on. It depends on like my mood, what I'm doing. Honestly, like what I want to feel at the time. That's the kind of music, and for me, like it'll go through like artists or genres, like not really weekly, but maybe bi-weekly or monthly. Kind of just like where you're at in your life, essentially.
Give me a few that you're fucking with. Or not even currently, just like, you know.
Music, like artist wise or like genre wise?
Artist wise. If you can think of, you know, I know, I get that, it's, you know, it's less about the artist sometimes if you're just.
I'd have to look at.
All good. What would you say your favorite, if main genre?
Probably country music right now, or just,
You a Morgan Wallen guy? You like Morgan?
Yeah, but then like there's some like I couldn't even, like that's what I'm saying. I couldn't even tell you their names because like I don't even know where you find them. Like you'll just see it like
I get it.
Just through whatever it is, like social media or just like you just kind of find it and you're like, you know, I like music that I can kind of relate to in a sense.
Speaks to you in a way.
Or where you you're like, I've kind of lived like that experience a little bit. And like that's not always found in country music. Like you can find that in a rap song. You can find that in a lot of your songs.
Right.
And I think that's the cool thing about music and what we touched on earlier is like you can hear a song and it'll take you back to a time or a moment of like when that was going on and like you'll never forget it.
Are you a music guy to the stadium, in the stadium? You AirPod and listen to shit? Or are you more?
I think I'm gonna be more now of that. Usually I was kind of just like whatever's playing in the clubhouse, I would just kind of roll with. Yeah. Whether it was, you know, whoever was running the thing, like it's changes like 4 or 5 times a day, depending on who's in the clubhouse. You know, you'll go from like hardcore Latin music to country music to rap music to just really whatever, which is cool. But you kind of, for me, I guess. So in that Utah trip we were talking about, I was like, I went with Mike Brasso, and he was playing Justin Moore a lot. So like his music kind of fit like that scene actually. Like it was kind of a perfect pairing. It's
a beautiful
just,
thing
like,
when it happens.
out in the mountains and that. And like I was talking to him about that literally, I think it was like 3 or 4 nights ago. We were going to dinner and we were talking about it. I was like, and there was like a Justin Moore song that came on. And I was like, dude, I'm never gonna be able to listen to this guy and like not think of that Utah trip. Like 15 years from now, one of those songs could come on and I'll think about like, Park City, Utah. It's
really dope.
Which is cool. I don't know what the theme for Malibu will be yet, but remains
Blue
to be
Water.
Seen. Yeah, Blue Water maybe, right?
Yeah, man. Well,
but I think just like looking out at that, like right there, like that's perfect. Like it doesn't really get much better.
What
than
it's all
that.
about. This is the beauty, all your hard work, all the things all the steps you take, the backs and the forths and the doubts and the, you know, whatever may have been experienced. Nature's always just going to give you the truth. I feel like it's a home baseline to be centered. And once I realized that, there was a huge unlock. I talked about the aha moments. It's been an aha moment. You know, it sounds like you understand it. You grew up here. You're a lucky bastard. I mean, not necessarily Malibu, and your view has changed and improved vastly, I'd imagine. But it's a beautiful, beautiful aspect of what you've built, bro. You know, we talked about struggle a lot today and challenges that you faced as a person, as a player. It's also, you know, it's also very, very helpful and important to acknowledge the successes and that gratitude that you talked about. I mean, the successes in it all is, you know, in those moments of realizing the journey, you know, to be able to sit here and enjoy it and get these views and get these downloads. So I wish you the best, bro. I'm really excited to watch that.
You as well, dude.
Yeah, I'm hoping I can bully you a little bit to even just lean in. You don't even need any help, you know, but like mentally, I don't think, but just even leaning more into that just mental preparation of staying in that
Yeah.
with that abyss.
I think you can always get better with it, you know?
Yeah.
Whether it's like
100%.
You know, but I've needed help with it. That's the thing. It's like there was definitely times where like I really needed it and was like stubborn to like go down that road and not really just be like, nah, I'm good. Like I don't need to do that shit. Like it's not for me. And then finally did it and leaned into it and was like, you know, it changes your life in a sense because it changes your outlook and it changes what makes you happy and what for the better, I think. Like it makes you realize what's important and what's not.
Without a doubt. Well, we started this conversation. I think we were at the sun's peak.
Yeah.
And she's down. She's gone for the day. Tomorrow we'll get another view. Sounds like you're a sunrise guy over the sunset, or both?
Both.
Yeah. That's the right answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, man, happy for you. You're gonna be here for what, 5 more weeks?
No,
you're gone?
Not even. I got probably another week here, and then I'll be in Arizona for a little bit. I got to do some stuff out there, and then I'm gonna go.
You're only here for 1 more week.
Yeah, I think the following Monday, I can go to Arizona, do some stuff, and then waste management, and like I'm gonna get out of there before.
These guys are gonna be. I'm not gonna be there, but we're having a big Stevenson Ranch party. Some country guys are coming and singing, and then if you want to go, come through. Just come catch a vibe. You know,
I'll be out there. Yeah, I'm probably leaving there like Saturday, I think, to come back out here.
You try to wet your feet in spring training a little bit because you know you're not gonna during the year in regards to just going out having some fun.
Yeah, I mean, spring training is honestly, spring training is the hardest month of the year physically for your body, and I think because like you're up at 5:45, 6 in the morning, and then it's just such long days because it's like a full practice, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of individual stuff, break, and then you play a game, and then you're up super early again. So, I think spring training is tough. Like you definitely don't want to go out or do anything in spring training most of the time just because you're gassed. But
so you would argue spring training is harder than the season, grind wise. Well, I mean,
physically sometimes like that month's hard because I think you're getting back into shape.
Yes.
And then, the season in its own animal, like there's nothing that's going to be harder than the season because
the length itself.
Spring training, there's like an element, like if you actually don't feel good in spring training, you're like, I'm not going to play the game today because I don't feel good. And it's totally cool. Like that's not really an option in season. And just like the first time you put cleats on and stuff again, like your body feels like shit for a few days.
Yeah.
The early mornings, you're on the morning shift and then one day just like switches to the night shift right away. So just a weird transition.
Yeah.
Well, nothing that you're not used to. Yeah.
Good luck, my brother.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks for coming through.
No, thank you.
Cheers.
Appreciate it, Steve.